Imagine a moment so powerful that just two simple words spoken by one man shook the very foundations of a superpower. Picture a voice so calm, yet so commanding, that it made the entire world stop and take notice, especially America. Today, we dive into that unforgettable moment when Jaishankar, India's voice on the global stage, delivered a message that changed the game forever. This isn't just a story about diplomacy or politics. It's about courage, confidence, and the rise of a nation refusing to be overlooked. Stay with me, because what happened next will inspire you, challenge your perceptions, and show you the true power of speaking your truth with conviction. Let's explore how two words echoed around the world and signaled the dawn of a new era. Is Jaishankar's approach to diplomacy represents a remarkable transformation in how India positions itself on the world stage. Traditionally, Indian diplomacy was often seen as cautious and measured, sometimes perceived as accommodating to dominant global powers, especially the West. However, under Jaishankar's leadership as External Affairs Minister, this narrative has shifted dramatically. He embodies a brand of diplomacy that is bold, assertive, and rooted in India's national interests above all else. What sets Jaishankar apart is not just his mastery of international relations, but also his unflinching readiness to speak truth to power. His voice resonates with confidence, and his words carry weight because they are backed by India's growing global influence, economically, politically, and militarily. This bold diplomacy does not mean reckless or confrontational behavior. Rather, it reflects a strategic clarity that refuses to be overshadowed or dictated to by any country, including the United States. Jaishankar has demonstrated that India can engage with the world on its own terms, respecting its sovereignty and values while navigating complex geopolitical reality. His diplomacy reflects a larger trend within India, a refusal to accept the status quo, and a readiness to challenge long-standing assumptions about global hierarchies. In many instances, Jaishankar has addressed contentious issues directly and candidly, whether it be about trade imbalances, security concerns, or human rights debates. His ability to communicate with firmness yet maintain diplomacy has gained respect and sometimes unease among traditional power centers. This shift represents India's emergence from the shadows into a spotlight where it commands respect not by echoing others, but by setting its own agenda. Jaishankar's diplomacy is a testament to India's growing confidence and its determination to chart an independent course that reflects its values and ambitions. The power of two words spoken by S. Jaishankar captured the attention of the entire world, especially in America, because those words carried far more than their simple meaning. They represented a moment of clarity and assertiveness from a nation that has long been expected to tread lightly in global affairs. These two words were delivered with calm conviction, without anger or aggression, yet they carried an undeniable force that exposed underlying tensions and challenged established narratives. In a setting where diplomacy often involves careful wording and subtle nuances, Jaishankar's directness was a breath of fresh air that unsettled many in the West. The United States, accustomed to being the dominant voice on the international stage, was taken aback by the confidence and clarity with which India's top diplomat articulated his position. Those two words echoed a deeper frustration with the double standards and selective criticisms that often characterize Western diplomacy. They highlighted India's refusal to be boxed in or judged by criteria set by others. By choosing his words carefully but boldly, Jaishankar managed to shift the conversation, forcing American officials and commentators to rethink their assumptions about India's role and stance. It was a moment that symbolized India's rising assertiveness and its determination to speak for itself without seeking permission or approval. The impact of those two words went beyond mere semantics. They symbolized a larger shift in global dynamics, signaling that India was no longer willing to be a passive player, but a powerful voice demanding respect. The shock in America was not just about what was said, but about the realization that a new chapter in international relations had begun, one where India's voice would be heard loud and clear. India's shift from silence to strength marks a profound transformation in how the country engages with the world. For decades, India often adopted a more cautious and restrained approach in international affairs, sometimes perceived as a follower rather than a leader. This was partly due to its historical context, emerging from colonial rule, focusing on internal development, and carefully navigating Cold War tensions. However, the changing global landscape and India's own growth have fueled a new sense of confidence and assertiveness. Today, India no longer remains a silent observer watching global events unfold. It actively shapes those events with its own voice and vision. This change is evident in the way Indian diplomats, especially under Jaishankar's leadership, engage with other nations. They speak candidly, defend India's interests boldly, and do not shy away from challenging dominant narratives, even when that means disagreeing with powerful countries. This shift reflects India's evolving self-image, from a developing nation seeking approval to a rising power setting its own agenda. It also signals India's willingness to take on greater responsibility in global affairs, including security, trade, climate action, and regional stability. India's silence was never a sign of weakness. Rather, it was strategic patience. But strength today comes from clarity of purpose and readiness to stand firm on principles. This new posture inspires not only the Indian population, but also many smaller nations looking for an example of sovereign confidence. India's transition from silence to strength challenges the old world order, showing that respect is earned through conviction, resilience, and the courage to voice one's truth. It is a pivotal moment in history as India steps forward as a confident actor, shaping the future of international diplomacy on its own. Is Jaishankar's words sent a clear and unmistakable message to the West. The era of double standards and selective morality is coming to an end. For decades, many Western nations, including America, have often applied different rules and judgments depending on who they are dealing with, expecting others to conform to their values while excusing their own actions. This approach has bred resentment and mistrust in many parts of the world. Jaishankar's statement reflected a growing impatience with this imbalance, a demand for fairness, respect, and consistency in how international relations are conducted. By calling out these double standards, he highlighted the frustration felt by many countries who have endured criticism or pressure while powerful Western countries operate with impunity or ignore similar issues. His remarks challenged the assumption that Western perspectives and criticisms hold universal moral authority. This is not about confrontation for its own sake, but about asserting India's right to be judged by the same criteria it applies to others. The message resonated widely because it tapped into a global yearning for a more just and equitable international order. It also emphasized that India is no longer willing to accept being held to different standards or being lectured by powers that selectively enforce rules. Jaishankar's words represented a shift from passive acceptance to active assertion, a refusal to be sidelined or patronized. This stance reflects a broader shift in global power dynamics where emerging nations demand respect and fairness. By articulating this openly, Jaishankar put the West on notice that it must reconsider its approach or risk losing influence. The call for no more double standards is a call for honesty, balance, and mutual respect in international diplomacy, a foundation necessary for a truly multipolar world where every nation's voice matters equally. India's rise as a global power is marked by its commitment to strategic autonomy, a foreign policy principle that emphasizes independence in decision-making without aligning rigidly with any major bloc or superpower. This approach reflects India's long-standing tradition of non-alignment, but updated for the complexities of today's world. Rather than being forced to pick sides in a polarized global environment, India chooses to prioritize its national interests and values above external pressures. This stance is significant because it asserts that India will not allow its foreign policy to be dictated by others, including the United States or any Western power. Strategic autonomy means engaging with multiple countries and blocs, building partnerships based on mutual benefit, and maintaining flexibility to navigate changing geopolitical realities. Under Jaishankar's leadership, this principle has been clearly articulated and consistently applied, signaling to the world that India's decisions are sovereign and self-determined. This policy reflects maturity and confidence, showing that India understands the complexities of global diplomacy and is prepared to walk its own path rather than following someone else's script. It also highlights India's recognition of its unique position, balancing relationships with competing powers while advancing its development goals and security interests. Strategic autonomy is a powerful message to the world. India values its freedom to act independently and will resist any attempts to pressure it into alliances or policies that do not serve its interests. This approach fosters respect and signals that India is a thoughtful, pragmatic actor committed to stability and cooperation, but on its own terms. The rise of strategic autonomy marks a new era in India's foreign policy, reflecting both its growing power and its refusal to be pigeonholed into outdated Cold War frameworks or modern-day power struggles. It is a testament to India's sovereignty, self-confidence, and vision for a balanced multipolar world. The moment marked by Jaishankar's powerful words signaled a significant psychological shift in global power dynamics. For years, India was often seen as a secondary player, seeking validation from established Western powers and trying to fit into a world shaped largely by those nations. But that perception is changing rapidly. Jaishankar's assertiveness symbolized India's evolution from a nation that once sought permission to act into one that commands respect on its own terms. This shift is not merely symbolic. It reflects the real changes taking place on the ground. Economically, militarily, and diplomatically, India's growing economy, expanding technological capabilities, and strategic importance in the Indo-Pacific region have all contributed to this new status. But more importantly, it is India's confidence and clarity of purpose that have transformed how it is perceived internationally. By standing firm and speaking clearly, Jaishankar demonstrated that India no longer waits for approval or validation, but shapes the agenda itself. This has led to a reevaluation among global powers, including America, about how to engage with India. The shock in America was less about the content of Jaishankar's words and more about the realization that India's role in the world has fundamentally changed. This moment highlights the transition from unipolarity, where one superpower dominated, to a more multipolar world, where power is distributed among several influential nations. India's rising stature contributes to this new balance, and its ability to assert itself diplomatically signals that it is ready to play a central role in shaping the future international order. This shift impacts alliances, economic ties, and strategic calculations as the world adjusts to a confident India that speaks and acts independently, demanding its rightful place at the global table. In conclusion, the two words spoken by Jaishankar were not just a statement. They were a powerful declaration of India's newfound confidence and strength on the world stage. They symbolized a turning point where India chose to stand tall, speak its truth, and demand respect without hesitation. This moment reflects a larger shift in global dynamics, reminding us all that the future belongs to those who dare to assert their identity and values boldly. As India continues to rise, it inspires not just its own people, but the entire world to embrace courage, clarity, and conviction in pursuing their path. Thank you all for listening with open minds and hearts. May you carry the spirit of confidence and resilience into your own journeys. Good luck. May every step you take be guided by strength and purpose.